Today is going to be one of those drop it down deep kind of days. If you ain't so interested in infertility struggles or depression or the need for a midlife woman to find her groove possibly for the first time, then you might want to hop out of this video. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley Sue, for those of you who don't know me yet. If you have not tuned in before, a quick rundown of my channel is that I am heading toward middle age. I'm nearing 40. I am all about finding and creating sparkle, about finding sparkle from the inside out. I am all about overcoming depression and anxiety. I am all about standing strong in who I am and you standing strong in who you are. I am all about wanting to be goofy and laugh every chance possible, but I can drop it deep and start to cry on the drop of a dime. Today is going to be one of those drop it down deep kind of days. This video is a bit about my backstory and how the last 10 years, 20 years, 38 years have led me to this point of having a YouTube channel and wanting to help women and myself find our inner sparkle. If you ain't so interested in infertility struggles or depression, then you might want to hop out of this video. Okay, to go real far back, as a little girl, I knew I wanted to be a mommy. I told my mom, my grandma, that I wanted to have, in fact, I used to say when I was young, that I wanted to have 100 kids. Having a husband was always optional. It was second place because my real heart's desire was to be a mom. And I never had any doubt that I was going to have at least 3, if not 4 or 5 kids. My mom made sure to tell me growing up that due to health concerns and due to our family history, that if I wanted to be a mom, I needed to have my kids before the age of 30. I met Marcus when I was 10 years old, and he had just moved to North Carolina, and he was my first love. Getting engaged was one of the most exciting things, I've ever experienced in my life. It was magical. The way it happened, where it happened, how it happened, it's just a blessed story, and I'm so thankful for that. We were married a year later, which puts us at 30. And the year that we got married, some different things had happened with me that I'm not going to go into. They're a bit too personal for me to go into right now, but my periods disappeared. And that was odd, but it happens. I mean, we had just bought a house, we were painting, we were planning the wedding, we did all of it ourselves, we didn't hire a wedding planner, and you know, I started exercising, I lost a lot of weight, and I just hooked all of that up to why my hormones had kind of gone unbalanced all of a sudden, and figured they would chime back in. During 6 months without a period, I actually started having hot flashes, and it took me a couple months to figure out that's what was happening. I did not understand. I'd always been naturally very cold. Suddenly I would be sweltering and nobody else would be. And after a while it got to where once I figured out there were hot flashes, I could actually sense them coming before they started. I would get about a 45-second warning that it was about to start. And that was scary to me, to realize that my hormones were so off that I was having hot flashes at 30. But just a few days before our wedding, I started my period. So hey, back on track, everything's working, I'm feeling good about it. I had my period 3 times in a 6-week period. Something was off. And then it went missing again. And another 6 weeks passed, and I just knew. I knew that was it, we were pregnant. And I went for my annual appointment, and one of the first things they do with an annual appointment is give you a pregnancy test. And they came back in the room and said, well, you're not pregnant. And I burst into tears. I burst into tears, and the woman realized that something was clearly not okay with me, and I told her something was wrong, that my cycles were dramatically off, and I knew something was wrong. When the doctor came in, I asked her if I could possibly be in very early menopause, and she fought with me that I wasn't. She told me there was no way, I was too young, that it was purely from the stress of planning a wedding and buying a house that my periods had gone disrupted. And I told her about the hot flashes, and she completely shook me off. And I said, is there a test you can do to see? I don't even know, but is there something you can do just to make sure? And I was so glad that I fought. And she kept saying yes, but no. She refused. She said she wasn't going to test me because it was a waste of a test. And the more she told me that, the more infuriated and hysterical I became. And I just kept pushing and explaining why she needed to test me, because I knew something was wrong. And I told her how all the women in my family had menopause at 39, and that's what stopped her in her tracks. And then she decided to test my FSH, which I had no idea at that time that, what follicle stimulating hormones were. I didn't know what any of these numbers meant. I'm gonna jump ahead about 8 days later when she called me to tell me that my FSH was 61. She told me that I would need to be on hormone replacement therapy immediately. And when I hysterically asked her about becoming a mom, she told me too bad, that wasn't her problem and that it was never gonna happen, and to move on. I was not able to get hold of my husband and to tell him the news at that time. And I was scared and I was hurt. So I decided to sit down and write a note to my sisters and bridesmaids, an email, to tell them the news, because I needed someone to hear me. My doctor so refused to hear me. I needed somebody to hear me. So here is what I wrote them. I have not read this letter in years. I am a newlywed at the age of 30, and I've wanted to have a family my whole life. Seriously. Ask my grandma how I, as a child, told her I wanted to have 100 babies. Now, suddenly, I have erratic periods, and I'm told that my OBGYN, that my FSH, not day 3, but a random draw since I'm late for yet another period, is 40. By the way, FSH is the hormone your brain sends your ovaries that says, hey, make an egg for ovulation. And then the ovary starts an egg and says, hey brain, under control. And then the brain stops making FSH so that your cycle can work. Unless your ovaries don't say anything to your brain. In which case, the FSH levels rise as the brain continues to yell for your ovaries to work. And they've gone spontaneously deaf. I know my doctor fears for me that I'm suffering premature ovarian failure, and I pray that embracing faith and traditional Eastern medicine may hold power and answers for me that my husband and I are about to embark upon. She's less concerned about my fertility than the fact that women my age who have POF end up facing heart problems, cancer issues, and bone density loss at far greater rates than people who get menopause at a normal age. I feel hit by all of this at once, and I feel selfish for feeling this devastated and lost. I spent my 20s largely avoiding overindulging in drinking, eating a healthful, mostly vegetarian diet, and trying to avoid unnecessary chemicals and cleansing agents in my life in order to sustain a healthy fertility and pregnancy when we were blessed with that miracle. And then at 30, the love of my life asked me to marry him. And we've spent an amazing 2010 preparing for a new life together. With the wedding, the house, and all, and planning on starting a family soon. Talking about what life might look like down the road. Saying, quote, how useless we will feel at 50 with a life without kids. And that we both want that. But 2010 has been plagued with the sudden absence and erratic menstrual cycle. I had my yearly appointment this past Tuesday. She put me on Provera to force a period if my ovaries are still working. She drew blood and ran a slew of tests to see where it stands with various hormone levels. A few days later, I got the call that my thyroid and pituitary gland seem to be working very normally, but my FSH is very high, which she assures me this is a random reading, but nonetheless, I've since learned FSH is not 40 usually unless your ovaries are shutting down and you are entering menopause. Menopause. 30 friggin' years old. It can't be. Can it? And I'm in absolutely zero place in this moment to hear anyone talk to me about IVF. I know my options. And I know IVF is not in marks in my future. And regardless, even if we were open to it, if I'm going through menopause, it's futile. And my heart is broken. All I can do is pray and cry and pray and research traditional Eastern medicine to level my hormones and pray and cry and not give in, because Western medicine gives odds all the time that everyday people prove wrong. And then I will cry more and pray and wait for weeks or not. Did I mention that I'm praying and crying? Here's going to be the hard part. Reaching out and allowing others to reach in. I am notoriously isolationist, but I can already feel me receding from wanting to talk to friends and dreading my husband being told, because I don't know how to talk to this. And I don't know how to feel like I'm allowed to, or that anyone gets it or cares or should get it, or that anyone should care besides me. I want not to go home for our family Christmas Eve shindig, because I can already hear all the questions about, so when are you going to start a family? I'll fall apart, and I just can't. And trying not to be this alone person is maybe harder than knowing how to deal with this overwhelming journey ahead of me. I'm just scared right now that I'm not strong enough to handle this, that waiting is going to drive me nuts. That I'll be more withdrawn than ever while I wait for answers, and maybe even more if this is true. I don't want to. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to be this vulnerable or open. I don't want to see anyone and put on a show of feeling normal either. God, I suck. And I promise I will try really hard not to be jealous of you women with children, or resentful of my own situation, and instead know that the grace of God is somewhere in all of this. That was 7.5 years ago. Since my diagnosis, I have watched friends get pregnant with their first child and deliver their first child. I've watched some of these same women since then give birth to their third child. 3 children. While we continue to wait to become parents. I have been blessed to get 2 new nephews during the same 7.5 year period. We've been blessed to see one of our nieces and nephews actually become parents themselves. Which makes me feel like a total schmuck, because years ago when they got married and I was deep in depression, I told my husband then that if our, at the time, 19 or 20-year-old niece and nephew became parents before we did, that I wouldn't even want to live. And now I get to eat those words because I'm so happy to see them blessed. We are waiting adoptive parents. We are home study approved. We have an Adoptimus website and are hoping that some family who cannot take care of their own child chooses us and trusts us to raise their baby. I've considered adoption and wanted to adopt since I was young and wanted those 100 babies. I in no way thought that they were all going to be birthed from me. I am not open to hearing people suggest fostering at this time. Fostering and adoption are very different things, and this is not a conversation that I'm going to have, because if you're going to go into being a foster parent, you need to be in the mindset of being a foster parent. That is how you do justice to those children and that family. If you're going into the foster system, hoping to adopt those children, it's unfair, because your job is to help reconcile that child with their birth family. And what our heart of hearts has always wanted is to become parents. We have a nursery ready because we are trying to live in faith. We've planned for the last 7.5 years. And the day that I wrote that letter to my sisters, I had to tell my husband that evening that the doctor said that I'm broken. That the one thing that I thought I was put on this planet to do, I can't do. And that the woman he just married has already failed him. I don't think I'll ever get over having to feel that way. And he cried and he held me. And he told me that everything was gonna be okay. That we just had to get me healthy. Keep me healthy. Because we had always planned to adopt. Nonetheless, it's been a long road and a hard road, and between premature ovarian failure and then my father's death, it's taken me years to remember how to feel sparkle. It's taken me a long time to feel that from inside of me, and to feel strength within myself, and to realize that I do feel strong, even if I also feel physically broken. If you have just recently got the diagnosis yourself, if you are struggling with infertility, with the adoption weight, with the fear that you will never become a mother, you're not alone. You'll feel like you are, especially if you just got that diagnosis. There are blogs everywhere now about women who have premature ovarian failure. Many of them still have low enough of a FSH that they're still eligible for IVF. I hate those blogs. They are very misleading for people like me who have severe POF. But when I got diagnosed, there were 0 blogs. None. I started my own. And I, for 4 years, I believe, chronicled my journey and my feelings about infertility. But I knew it was time to find my sparkle. And then I knew I was actually starting to feel my sparkle. And now I know that I need other women to find and feel their sparkle.